And Jess Foster, City of Asheville Public Works Sanitation Division Manager. As has been shared in previous briefings, there are 3 temporary debris management sites that have been permitted and activated. Inca Commerce Park, 65 Ford Street, and the front 9 of the municipal golf course. The Inca Commerce Park site is the only site that is currently receiving debris. As you can see, there's a slide here that shows the Inca Commerce Park site. The site is in a more industrial location and is over half a mile from any schools. "65 Ford Street, there is construction and demolition debris and vegetative debris at that site currently. Over the next 2 weeks, the construction and demolition debris will be compacted and removed to a final disposal facility. The vegetative debris will remain at this site at this time. No material has been brought to the golf course at this time. Numerous additional permit applications have been submitted to North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, NCDEQ, including for sites within the River Arts District corridor to enable our contractors to manage that debris within that area. We've heard there's some questions about zoning of the temporary sites that we have identified. The City of Asheville Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO, allows for the placement of any temporary uses that the city manager deems necessary or desirable in conjunction with the management of the emergency. This is outlined specifically in the temporary uses section of the UDO, Chapter 7, Section 5.3K. These decisions are not easy, and every decision will be made with community safety in mind. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about what has happened to date. We have secured a contractor, SDR, who has extensive experience in natural disaster debris removal. We have secured an additional contractor, Debris Tech, to monitor the debris removal process for FEMA compliance. Before the event, city staff analyzed potential temporary sites that could be quickly activated, although at that time, we weren't expecting the amount of debris that we currently have. City-owned property was able to be mobilized as quickly as possible due to city ownership, adequate space, access, and topography. Activation of those sites enabled us to begin removing debris from around critical infrastructure like hospitals and emergency services facilities. At the same time, inquiries and negotiations for privately owned property were underway. Finding adequate temporary debris sites is challenging. There are state regulations that limit where these sites can be staged, including required distances from waterways, residences, wells, and roads. There's got to be enough space to stage and process, separate the debris so that it can be monitored, sorted, reduced in size, and hauled away to a permanent site outside of the city. We are looking for areas across the city so that contractors can efficiently work to remove debris from city streets and minimize their driving distance. It's important to understand that the more sites that we have around the city, the quicker and more safely we can remove this debris from our community. I'd like to talk a little bit about accountability and monitoring of these sites. Debris collection contractors can only collect debris that meets regulatory requirements. That does not include hazardous waste. They cannot collect hazardous waste. If debris collection contractors note hazardous waste when they're out collecting debris, they will notify appropriate staff and state agencies to contain and mitigate that waste and will not bring it to a debris management site. Our debris monitors follow the collection trucks in the field to make sure there's compliance with FEMA regulations. Our debris sites are marked by surveyors to identify the required boundaries and setbacks. The sites are monitored several times a week by city staff to ensure operations are remaining within our DEQ permit guidelines. Sites will also be monitored for safety by Asheville Fire Department staff and by NCDEQ inspectors to ensure compliance with permit requirements. Random soil and water samples will also be collected at sites for analysis. While dust is typically not a significant issue at sites, the dust control measures will be put in place, including wetting down of materials as needed. So what happens at these temporary sites? First, as I mentioned, no toxic hazardous waste will be brought to temporary sites. That type of waste goes through a different process and is managed and disposed of by the Asheville Fire Department Hazmat Response Team or by state hazmat contractors. Debris that will be collected and brought to temporary sites are construction and demolition materials and bulky materials like wood, windows, furniture, carpet, electronics like TVs, household appliances, refrigerators, washer dryers, vegetative and organic materials, which do not need to be cut down to size, and household hazardous waste, such as household cleaners, pesticides, paint, and batteries. These materials are sorted and processed on site, and typically within 2 weeks, material that was brought to the site is on its way out already to a permanent disposal site. So there's a constant flow through of materials. It comes in, it's separated into the different types of waste if it wasn't already at the curb. It's reduced in size. Vegetation will be ground up. Our construction and demolition debris will be compacted, not ground up. Once it's reduced in size, then it is shipped out to a permanent disposal facility. There have been some questions about how the household hazardous waste will be managed. These materials are collected separately and will be placed in a containment system so that they cannot leach into soil at the temporary sites. They're then sealed and hauled off to a permanent disposal location. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the collection and sorting process. As we said before, the initial assessment shows up to 3 million cubic yards of storm debris in the city alone, and that is the equivalent of roughly 140 football fields stacked 10 feet high. Our city contractors are collecting storm debris around the city 7 days a week during daylight hours. In order to expedite the collection process, we're asking the community to sort their debris near the curb into the following categories: construction and demolition and bulky items, appliances, electronics, vegetative debris, and household hazardous waste. Please do not block the roadway with your debris or place debris on top of utilities or meters. We need to keep our roadways clear for emergency access. And when the claw is out there picking up debris, we don't want to ruin any city infrastructure. You do not have to get all your storm debris to the curb out at once. Contractors will be making multiple passes to collect debris. Additionally, mud and sediment with no signs of contamination can be placed at the curb for proper disposal. Small amounts of household mud that may have been exposed to household chemicals, like your cleaning chemicals, if it's a small amount, it can be contained and taken to a landfill. Mud or sediment from businesses and commercial sites with contamination should be placed in a container until proper disposal is decided in coordination with the Division of Waste Management Inactive Hazardous Sites Branch. That is a state agency. Additional info on debris sorting and collection can be found at the city's Helene Response and Recovery website, asheville.nc.gov/Helene. Thank you.